What if Jeremiah Fears had not reclassified?
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another fun episode of Locked On Illini. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. My name is Sunny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast. You can find me at the Sunny V. And a simple reminder, if you would like to continue to support this daily coverage of your Illini, all I ask in return is for you to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. The College Football Playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. I figured we would have a little fun with today's episode. Again, the Illini basketball team is in the middle of an 8-day stretch without a game, and the Illini football team, well, things have been relatively quiet when it comes to the transfer portal. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about Jeremiah Fears. On late Wednesday night, I watched the game between Michigan and Oklahoma. I'm keeping tabs on Michigan because I think they're very close to being a very good basketball team and possibly a team that Illinois is going to be contending with in order to eventually win this Big Ten conference this year. And while watching the game, obviously the guy who stole the show was Jeremiah Fears. Jeremiah had, I believe, 30 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists on 8 of 12 shooting against the Wolverines. And of course, Jeremiah Fears is a name that's always going to kind of be in the back of Illini fans' minds just because of how close he was to becoming an Illini. For those of you who don't know, and I know there's very few of you, early in January in 2024, Jeremiah had committed to the University of Illinois. Now, this was a very big commitment because his older brother was also involved with the recruitment with Illinois, but ultimately it didn't work out for, if I'm going to be honest with you, it looked like Illinois decided to pursue other prospects. And usually when something like that happens with the older brother, you just go ahead and assume that maybe the younger brother is probably not going to be an option. But the Fears family had continued to be very mature about the whole recruiting process. Brad and the father of the Fears family still have a pretty good relationship. And so Illinois decided not to soften their pursuit of the younger brother, who many say is probably the more talented one. And ultimately it paid off. Again, January 22nd, Jeremiah had committed to the Illini, which was huge news for Illini fans. And how do I know this? Because it was by far my most viewed video on my other channel, IlliniCast, which by the way, I'll also be making some videos sometime this week. So make sure you're subscribed to that as well. Well, ultimately, Jeremiah Fears and his family decided that they were done with high school basketball and that they wanted to reclassify to this season. And the problem with that is at this point, Illinois had already gotten Kasparis Jakushonis. They had already gotten Kylan Boswell. The team that Jeremiah was supposed to fit in with next year, he could have came in and slid in as the lead guard, as the number 1 guy, and everyone in Champaign would have been excited. But with the type of player that Jeremiah is, and that's the type of player who needs to have the ball in his hands, he's a pure scorer. He's got an amazingly quick first step. And quite honestly, a prospect of Jeremiah's stature is going to require some pretty big NIL funds. Well, at this point, Brad had almost settled on his roster, and the fit with Illinois wasn't necessarily there, especially if Jeremiah wanted to start. I'm not saying I know he for a fact did, but Kasparis and Kylan Boswell were going to start here for the Illini. So ultimately, Jeremiah decided to go to Oklahoma, the Sooners. The Sooners right now, I believe, are the number 14 team in the country. They're still undefeated, and he's making a name for himself to the point where I think he's going to be talked about as a lottery pick. And good for him. Again, the relationship with Illinois and Jeremiah Fears had never soured. I truly felt in the back of my mind that if Fears played well this season, the opportunity for Fears to come back to Champaign next year was always going to be there, just because of the relationship that the Fears family has with this coaching staff. But again, that's just not going to happen anymore. At least it doesn't look like it. It looks like Jeremiah is very much going to be playing in the professional league next year, and I'm very happy for him. That's really what the family wanted from the beginning. That's why they kind of expedited this whole process, in reclassifying at the time. Look, I saw Jeremiah Fears play high school basketball. That was not the kid I watched last night. Whoever the trainer, whoever the dietitian is for Jeremiah, he deserves a raise. According to ESPN, he's at 6'4", 182 pounds. He just looks so much physically bigger. The reason I wasn't heartbroken when Jeremiah decided to reclassify is because I didn't think he was going to be physically ready for the Big Ten. But, credit to him. He's grinded his butt off, obviously, and he's made himself ready not just to be a college basketball player, but a good college basketball player. And just for a second, I just wanted to reimagine what if that whole scenario I just described didn't happen. And what if Jeremiah had stayed true to his commitment to Illinois, and we had 3 guards of Kasparis, Kylan, and Jeremiah. Now, my everydayers in here know that almost for every preview, and it's going to happen for this bragging rights game against Missouri on Sunday as well, I keep talking about how I'm waiting to find out who that second scorer is going to be behind Kasparis. The second guy that we know we can count on night in and night out. Very similar to last year. We knew Terrence Shannon Jr. was the guy, but we also knew Marcus Damask was the other guy. And so opposing defenses always had 2 guys that they had to be concerned with every single night. Right now, we know Kasparis is him, the alpha, but right now we just don't know who that second person is going to be. Jeremiah this year would have fit in almost perfectly. Jeremiah right now is averaging 17.9 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 4.6 assists, and almost 50% shooting. Kasparis is an amazing playmaker. Someone said on my video yesterday that Kasparis has been a godsend, and I can't quibble with that at all, especially knowing his work rate and the amount of hours he's willing to put into his game. It's easy to see why he's a future superstar in waiting. Colin Boswell is a kid who has really understood his role on this year's basketball team, and our ace defender, a guy that we stick against the opposing team's best offensive player, and night in and night out, the opposing team's best offensive player has his worst game of the season, mainly due to Kylan. Now, just imagine if we had a guy like Jeremiah who would essentially be the perfect complement to the 3, a scoring first combo guard, a guy who you could honestly just give the ball to, and his first step is so incredibly quick that even the best defenses in the country are having a lot of trouble stopping. Now, I'm a Big Ten guy. I'm a Big Ten guy through and through. But this year, what that SEC conference is doing on the basketball court, quite honestly, it's very, very impressive. And Jeremiah has led that Oklahoma Sooners team right now to an undefeated record. He is already one of those breakout stars of college basketball this season. Now, would he have ultimately played to this level here in Champaign, even with Kasparis and Kylan? No, probably not. But imagine him in the DGL role, right? Maybe the 6th man, the first guy off the bench, just instant scoring immediately. We're hoping Will Riley will eventually turn into that guy, maybe as soon as this season. But it's fun / hard to watch Jeremiah doing what he's doing at Oklahoma and not wondering what if. Now, ultimately, again, as I said on all the social medias last night, and by the way, if you're not following, just do a quick search for Locked On Illini. I do very short clips, reels, shorts, whatever you want to call them. I made one immediately after that Michigan game, just talking about Jeremiah. And a lot of you responded, which is why I'm kind of leading off today's video talking about it. Ultimately, I'm very content with the way things turned out. I think Kylan and Kasparis as a backcourt, I don't know who else in the country can match that. I think Kylan and Kasparis, they balance each other out very, very well. And of course, Kasparis at this point is not considered just a lottery pick, but I've seen an article that showed he could be a top 3 pick in next year's NBA draft. So again, there's no regrets. But after watching that Michigan game, I can't say that I don't maybe wonder what if. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Simple reminder, if you haven't already, just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And also, there's a link to our Discord in the description. We talk Illini sports all day, every day, and not just Illini sports. We talk life, any breaking news that happens in the world of sports. And we'd love to have you a part of our Locked On Illini community. So last week, Alex Costanza, a top 15 forward in the 2026 class, visited Brad Underwood and Champaign, and it looks like that visit went pretty well. The reason I say that is Joe Tipton from On3 Sports talked about Brad Underwood being in Florida to watch the City of Palms Classic, which featured Alex Costanza, the 5-star who visited last week. Now, obviously, if things didn't go well last week, maybe we would have kind of gotten a vibe that Illinois or Alex were moving in a separate direction. But Brad showed up in Florida amongst many other teams. It looks like Oklahoma State, Kentucky, and Oregon are also in the running for Alex. But Alex, by all means, looks like he's going to be a star player. He's been hurt for a while, but in his first game back a couple days ago, he scored 44 points, had 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Now, there's talk about Alex possibly reclassifying to 2025, which I think, could be an ideal situation or not for the Illini, depending on the development of Will Riley. Alex has a game very similar to Will's. I mean, you're talking about a pure scorer. Alex is about the same size, but actually has a little bit more girth to him, a little bit more strength. Will Riley's a little skinnier. But, I can see why the plan for Alex to, just kind of fit it right into the Will Riley role would make sense, and why that's something that we'll have to continue to monitor the rest of the year to see if Will Riley develops into that star player that a lot of us think he can become, because something like that can really be sold to a guy like Alex Costanza to say, hey, look, we have a guy who plays very similar to you, who is close to your size. And look what we've done to him. He was one of the top prospects in the country. He decided to commit to the Illini. Our coaching staff not only had a successful season on the court as a team, but Will Riley himself was developed the way that we promised he would be developed and the way we promised we'll develop you. And now he's playing in the NBA and hopefully drafted as a lottery pick. Now, I just got finished talking about Jeremiah Fears in the previous segment, a kid who had committed to the Illini in January. In July, he was gone. And let's be honest, recently the trend with Brad Underwood teams is that there's a lot of roster turnover. And I mean, next year should be no different. While we should have a lot of players returning, quite honestly, in today's college basketball world, there's a lot of players who are always looking to be playing on the basketball court and may not be content with the roles that they were given on said team. And so they might decide to seek out opportunities elsewhere. But I will say that if Alex Costanza does decide to reclassify to 2025, all of a sudden, almost immediately, that's such a fantastic start to your recruiting class. Again, you'll have a bona fide scorer on that team. And let's be honest, at this point, with Brad Underwood, with Orlando Antigua, and the rest of this coaching staff, they've built up my trust level in that they're going to find the right guys to field a very good basketball team next year. Just look at this year, Kasparas Jakishonis, Tomislav Avicic, Trey White. All these guys were relatively unknown by Illini fans just 6 months ago. And now they're here leading arguably the best team in the Big Ten Conference. And, hopefully, again, we don't have the massive turnover that we have, that we just had. But there's a very good chance a kid like Kasparas Jakishonis is going to the NBA draft and going to be drafted very, very high. There's also still a very good chance that Will Riley is going to test the NBA waters. And so he may not be on next year's team. And so the best way to continue and sustain the success that we've been having as of late is just continuing to bring in talent. And Alex Costanza is one of the best and most talented players in either the 2026 or 2025 class, whichever one he decides to ultimately settle in. Now, usually, when it comes to players that reclassify, because they're younger, they're not quite as physically developed. But that's not always the case. Again, as we just saw with Jeremiah Fears, a guy who should be a high school senior this year, is tearing it up for an undefeated Oklahoma Sooners team right now, being their best player, averaging almost 18 points per game. I'm not saying Alex can have that sort of impact on next year's team, but stature-wise, physically-wise, he looks very much like Will Riley, but he might actually be more prepared for the physicality of the Big Ten Conference compared to Will, just because he's got a few more pounds on him compared to Riley. Of course, this is going to be a situation that we continue to monitor. I don't think there's any sort of commit watch here. Obviously, Illinois feels pretty decent in the sense that just a week after he came to visit Champaign, they're continuing to pursue Alex and let them know of their interest by, showing up at his games. These sort of relationships, they matter in the long run. And so this is something that we're going to continue talking about. As soon as I have any updates, I'll let you guys know. Again, having a guy like Alex Costanza be one of the highlights of your recruiting class, no matter what year, is kind of the reasons you bring in a guy like Orlando Antigua. And yes, this is a Orlando Antigua recruit. Not only is he one of the best developers of talent in college basketball, but he's got connections that very few in the college basketball world can match. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Join now because the holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, just download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. And that'll just about wrap it up for today's version of Locked On Illini. I'm very curious on your guys' thoughts. Do you think about Jeremiah Fears at all? Is there any sort of regret or anger or anything, whatever feelings you might have? Let me know in the comment section of this video. I'm very curious to hear. What about Alex Costanza? Is that the type of kid? Have you watched him before? Do you think he can fit in the 2025 team, or do you think he's a kid that you think you'd rather wait for the 2026? Simple reminder, please, if you aren't already subscribed to us, also on your favorite audio platform, that's equally as important. Make sure you find us on Spotify. Make sure you find us on Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, whatever audio platform you prefer. Make sure you find us there too. And again, just hit that subscribe button because it helps this channel grow immensely. And guess what? It costs you guys absolutely nothing. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast. Craig Shimon puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to for podcasts. Again, that's going to wrap it up for today. I'll have a Missouri preview for you guys for that game on Sunday. And again, it's just Illini content all day, every day. I promise you at least a half hour's worth. I appreciate that you guys continue to support the channel. And until next time, ILL. Love you guys.